I still remember the day the human ship answered our distress call. My name is Calith Vor, and I was a young deck officer in the Thessari Remnant Fleet. We were losing a war that had lasted longer than my whole life. Our enemy, the Kriv Ascendancy, had pushed us out of 3 home systems in 5 years. Our ships were old. Our forges were cold. Our best engineers were gone. We were not fighting to win anymore. We were fighting to survive one more day. That day, our sensors picked up a small convoy entering the edge of our system. Their ships were strange, boxy, and painted in dull colors that did not match any fleet we knew. When we hailed them, a calm voice answered. They called themselves humans, and they said they were traders passing through. When they saw our damaged hulls drifting near our shipyard, they offered to help repair a few of them before continuing on their journey. My commanders agreed. We needed the help, and we had nothing left to lose. I was chosen to be the liaison for their repair crew. I expected quiet workers who would patch a few holes and leave within a week. That is not what happened. The human foreman was a woman named Reyes. She walked through our broken shipyard, the way a doctor walks through a patient with too many wounds to count. She did not look sad. She looked curious. She asked me questions I did not expect. Why was our reactor routed through the center of the ship instead of the sides? Why had no one reinforced the keel in the last 20 years? Why were we still using an alloy that cracked in cold space? I told her this was how our ships had always been built. She nodded, but I could tell she did not agree. She said always been built is not the same as built well. I did not know how to answer that. Within 2 days, her small crew was not just patching hull plates. They were opening entire sections of our ships and rebuilding them. I remember standing in the cargo bay of the old warship Veyron Solus, watching human engineers strip out systems that were older than my grandmother. My superiors were angry. This was not what we had asked for. We asked for repairs, not a redesign. Reyes listened to their complaints calmly. Then she said something I would never forget. You asked us to fix your ships so they could fly again. I am fixing them so they can win again. If you want me to stop, tell me now. No one told her to stop. I watched them work for the next several weeks, and it was unlike anything I had seen in our own shipyards. When something failed, they did not treat it like a disaster. They treated it like information. A prototype engine core overheated during a test, and instead of writing a long report about what went wrong, they simply took it apart, changed 3 parts, and tried again the next day. In our fleet, a failure like that would take a full council meeting to even discuss. For them, it was breakfast conversation. I began spending most of my hours with their crew, translating between our language and theirs, learning their methods almost by accident. I remember a young human engineer named Tomas, who worked on our targeting systems. He once told me, back home, we don't wait for the perfect plan. We build something, we break it, we learn, and we build it better. Waiting for perfect is how you lose time you don't have. I did not fully understand him then. Our culture valued caution. We tested things for years before trusting them in battle. But watching him work, I began to see a different kind of confidence. It was not about being fearless. It was about not being afraid to be wrong on the way to being right. Not everyone shared my growing respect for the humans. Elder Vantis Ree, one of our fleet's oldest commanders, worried that we were losing something important. In a meeting I was allowed to observe, he said, "We are letting outsiders reshape the ships our ancestors built. If we win this war with their designs, was it truly our victory?" I understood his fear. I had felt it too, in quiet moments. But I also remembered what our old ships could do before the humans came, and it was very little. I found myself speaking up in that meeting, which was not something a junior officer like me usually did. I said that a victory won with help was still a victory. A ship still flying was better than a ship destroyed with pride intact. The room was silent for a long moment. Elder Vantis did not agree with me, but he did not argue either. The true test came sooner than anyone expected. A Kriv scouting fleet entered our system, while only half our ships had been refitted. Alarms rang through every corridor of the Veyron Solus. I remember running to my station, my hands shaking, certain we were about to lose more ships we could not afford to lose. What happened next surprised everyone, including the humans. Our partially refitted ships moved faster than they ever had. The new reactor cores gave us bursts of speed that let us slip past attacks that would have destroyed us before. Our shields, redesigned by human engineers, absorbed hits that used to tear straight through our hulls. Even our weapons, which the humans had improved almost as an afterthought while focused on the engines, fired with a precision our old systems never had. I stood at my station and watched the battle unfold on the display. Ships that had been called outdated wrecks only weeks earlier were now outmaneuvering enemy vessels that had chased us across 3 systems. When the Kriv scouts retreated, faster than they had arrived, a strange silence filled our bridge. No one cheered right away. We were too stunned. Then someone started laughing, and soon half the bridge crew was laughing with relief and disbelief together. I looked over at Reyes, who had come aboard to observe the battle. She was not laughing. She was already reviewing data from the fight, pointing out to Tomas which system had performed well and which still needed work. For her, the battle was not a victory to celebrate. It was a test result to study. Word of that battle spread through our fleet faster than any communication system could carry it. Other captains began requesting the same repairs for their ships. More human traders arrived, some looking for salvage rights, some simply curious about the challenge of rebuilding an entire fleet from the ground up. Our shipyards, quiet and half-abandoned for years, came back to life. I remember standing on an observation platform one evening, watching sparks fly from a dozen different hulls at once, listening to the mixed sound of Thesari work chants and human engineering songs playing from a portable speaker. It should have felt strange. Instead, it felt like hope. Not every change was easy to accept. Some of our engineers resented having their designs replaced. Some elders worried we were becoming dependent on people who owed us nothing and could leave whenever they wished. I understood these fears because I carried some of them myself. There were nights I wondered what would happen to us if the humans simply grew bored and moved on to another star system, leaving us with technology we did not fully understand. I asked Reyes about this one evening, as we stood near the hull of a ship being reborn under her crew's hands. I asked her why they were doing this. We had nothing valuable to offer humanity. Our resources were spent. Our systems were poor. She thought about the question for a while before answering. Some of my crew are here for the salvage rights, she said. Some are here for the challenge, but if I am honest, most of us are here because we saw broken things that could be fixed, and we could not walk away from that. It is just how we are built. I did not know if that answer should comfort me or worry me. Perhaps it was both. As weeks turned into months, our fleet became something none of us recognized. The old Veyron Solis, once a tired ship barely holding together, now moved like a living thing, responsive and strong. Human tactics blended with our own instincts, creating strategies that neither side would have discovered alone. Human engineers taught our crews new ways of thinking, while our pilots taught them the patience needed to navigate the dangerous debris fields left behind by years of war. It became less about who was teaching whom, and more about two very different peoples learning to build something together. The final battle came on a day I will never forget. The Kriv Ascendancy, confident from years of victories against our old fleet, sent their full force to finish us once and for all. They expected the same broken, desperate defenders they had beaten so many times before. They found something else entirely. I stood at my post as our newly rebuilt fleet moved into formation, faster and more coordinated than we had ever been. I will not describe every detail of that battle, only that it did not go the way the Kriv commanders expected. Our ships, powered by human-designed engines and guided by strategies built from both human and Thesari minds, held their ground and then pushed forward. Ship by ship, the Kriv formation broke apart and retreated, this time for good. When the battle ended and the enemy fleet withdrew beyond our system's edge, the silence on our bridge was different from the confusion after our first small victory. This time, we understood what had happened. We had not simply survived, we had won. I remember walking through the corridors of the Veyron Solis afterward, past crew members from both our peoples working side by side to repair minor damage, laughing together in a mix of languages neither side fully understood, but somehow made sense anyway. Reyes found me near the observation deck, watching the stars where the Kriv fleet had disappeared. "You did well," she said simply. "We could not have done it without you," I answered. She shook her head. "We only helped rebuild what was already yours. The choice to fight, to trust us, to keep going after every loss, that part was never ours to take credit for." I thought about her words for a long time afterward. The humans had not fought our war for us. They had simply refused to look at something broken and walk away. In doing so, they gave us back a fleet, but more importantly, they gave us back our belief that we could still win. Years later, when I tell this story to younger officers, some of them find it hard to believe that outsiders who owed us nothing chose to rebuild our entire fleet simply because they could not stand to see it fail. I understand their doubt. I felt it too, once. But I was there. I watched engines that should have been scrap metal roar back to life under human hands. I watched a people who asked for nothing in return give us the tools to save ourselves. Word of what happened to our fleet spread far beyond our system, carried by traders and travelers to distant corners of the galaxy. I do not know exactly what other worlds think when they hear the story now. Perhaps some see it as a warning. Perhaps others see it as an example. As for me, I only know one truth from all of it. If you ever find a human standing beside something broken, offering to take a look, you should let them. You may ask for a simple repair. What you receive might be something far greater than you ever expected.